So, our guest tonight, Berg Raunick, has been the director of choirs at North Central High School in Indianapolis, Indiana since 2013. Mike is a graduate of the IU Jacobs School of Music and holds a master's degree from Butler University. He's responsible for 5 choirs at North Central, including the nationally recognized concert show choir, the Counterpoints. Under Mr. Raunick's direction, the Counterpoints have been named Show Choir State Champions 4 times. North Central's Advanced Women's Choir, the Descants, have been named Show Choir State Champions 4 times, as well as Concert Choir State Champions twice. Previous to North Central, Mr. Raunick was the director of choirs at Waynedale High School in Apple Creek, Ohio. During his time at Waynedale, choral enrollment grew by over 200%, boasting 119 choir members in a school with a total enrollment of approximately 350. So basically half the school was in your choir. He founded 2 different ensembles which competed at the state level for the first time in school history and received the highest rating of a 1 at the OMEA state adjudicated events. His arrangements and compositions for show choir and concert choir have been performed by choirs throughout the Midwest. He also composed an original musical titled Welcome to College that is performed every summer as a part of orientation programming at Indiana University, Bloomington. In 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Mr. Raunick co-founded Riverbend Production Company, a virtual performance company. During the 2020-2021 school year, the company created over 200 virtual performance videos for choirs, orchestras, and bands across the United States and Canada. He is a member of multiple organizations. He has presented a clinic on developing a struggling choir program at the 2011 Ohio Music Educators Professional Development Conference. Originally from New Jersey, he was also the recipient of the New Jersey Governor's Award in Choral Music. He lives with his beautiful wife, Kara, and their beautiful daughter, Ruth, here in Indianapolis. Thank you for joining us and welcome, Mike Raunick. So good to have you.
My pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
So happy to have you here. Let me start with the question that I've been starting all of these sessions with, which is, it's a humbling thing to sit back and have your bio read by someone else. It can almost feel a little bit overwhelming, like, oh God, that was a lot, But I think it's really interesting to ask people, how do you define yourself? Here's this laundry list of accomplishments and accreditations and all of those things, but how do you define yourself?
Boy, it's a hard question. I think I would define myself primarily as a choir director. I think for me, there's always a push and pull about am I a teacher or am I a choir director, as what should I be called? And I call myself a choir director, even though teaching is something that's very important to me. But I think that's my primary thing, and I think my class is primarily rehearsal, and so that's my central thing. But I'm also other things that are important to me is being an arranger and a composer and musical theater music director, and mostly just somebody who loves making music with young people.
Tell me, did you always know you wanted to do this? Was music just, I think for so many of us, music just makes all the other options just disappear. Once you decide you're going to be a musician, that's it. Was it like that for you?
I don't know if I would say it was like that for me. It's always been very present. Both my parents were music majors. My dad was a piano major. My mom was a voice major. And I think maybe because of that, I always kind of didn't want to do it, even though it was always something I was good at, because you know how kids don't want to do the stuff that their parents do. So I think I wrestled with it hard. But once I kind of made the decision, junior year of high school, that this was, the way I was going to go, I haven't really looked back since then.
So tell everyone a little bit about your parents, because your parents flirted with Broadway for quite some time and have some pretty amazing stories. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, they both, so as I said, my dad was a piano major, my mom was a voice major, and they were both trying to do musical theater type stuff when they met. So they met working at a dinner theater in Florida. and then moved to New York City and worked for a cruise ship company and traveled the world working on cruise ships. And then they both have near miss stories on Broadway. So my mom was never a good dancer, but a great singer. So it meant she always had to audition for the leads or she wasn't going to get into a show. And she got called in after doing several rounds of auditions. I don't remember which show. And they told them, okay, there's 3 of you here. And one of you is getting the role. One of you is going to be the understudy. And one of you is going to be the swing. And then she was waiting to hear, and she got the call. And they said that Miss America from the previous year had come in and wanted the role. And so she got the role and the 2 other people got the other parts. And my mom got bumped out and she wasn't even in the show. Yeah. And then my dad wanted to be a music director on Broadway. And he got on the sub list to play piano in the Broadway pits. And he got called in to be the sub for the musical Sugar Babies in the 80s. And he sat in the pit and played on an unplugged keyboard for 2 weeks so that he would know the show, and then just waited until the actual keyboard player needed to have a vacation or whatever. And they called him, and the dates of when they needed him overlapped with my parents' honeymoon. And so then he said no, and then they never called him again. And that was it.
So he said no, but what I said to Mike was, and how many years have your parents been married now?
Yeah, I know. So I don't know how many exactly, but a long time. So
I would say it was not.
I always say reschedule the honeymoon. I mean, come on. But
I love it. She would have understood, right? If anyone would have understood, it would have been your mom.
I don't know. Yeah.
And New York City is packed with people who are playing cruise ships and piano bars and then serving tables during the day, and enormously talented and could work theoretically as the lead in any other city in the world, and yet are waiting for that phone call. Oh, yeah. Right?
Well, and it's so much about, I tell this to students all the time now, that New York City is all about who you know. Yeah. So I think you can make the argument that those people waiting tables many times might be more talented than the person playing the lead in the theater next door. But it's just about, not that the people on Broadway aren't great, they are, but it's so much more about, you have to be really good, and then you have to be good to work with and make a lot of connections so that people want to work with you again.
Right. One bad interaction, it just ends your career. Yep. And I think that can be said about any interaction. But so you were born in Edison, New Jersey, in JFK Hospital, which is directly across the street from Temple Emmanuel of Edison, New Jersey, which is where I started my cantorate. And in fact, I did tons of pastoral care and interfaith work at JFK. And so you and I were kind of in the same place at different times. So Edison, New Jersey, and then grew up in Colonia, went to big high school. Tell us about your high school experience and music in your life growing up.
Yeah, well, I was always peripherally involved in music. I think it wasn't really central to me until late in life. And I actually signed up for high school choir because in my high school, everybody had to decide if you had like a half period of lunch, and then the other half of the period was either a study hall or choir. Those are your 2 options. And I was like, well, I guess I'll take choir. I didn't really even want to, but then I did. And then, so I just, from there, I think my high school choir director grabbed me and figured out that it was the thing for me. And I started auditioning for stuff and made Central New Jersey Honor Choir, and then All State Choir. And then I did All Eastern Choir for like the Northeast United States. I don't know. And just got hooked. And then made a decision to major in it and make it my life.
So let's unpack that for 1 second about the just got hooked, because making music. So you and I agree, and we've talked at length about this, that, the stage is a lonely place, and we would much rather be in the company of others than be singing solo. That there's something magical that happens that in terms of bringing the black and white notes off the page, there's a texture and a color that comes with ensemble music making that solo music just can never achieve. So when do you think it was that you, quote, got hooked? Like, what was it that really pulled you in?
Um, so I think there are two experiences that stick out in my mind. One was the first time I made that Central New Jersey honor choir, and I sat in an auditorium. It was like a choir with like 300 kids in it, a ridiculously huge thing. And I don't even remember what piece, but they sang for the first time, and I was just like, oh my God, like I can't believe what this feels like, even more than sounds like what the like vibration felt like. And that was a really transformative thing for me, where I was like, I have never experienced anything like this before, where there was this kind of like, I don't think I would have been able to put these words on it at the time, uh but this kind of collaborative musical just experience. And it wasn't a performance, it was just like we were just like running a peak, like it was nothing. But it was really special. And then I think the second thing that was really solidifying for me was when I did the one of the times I did the like all Eastern choir in high school, and we sang in Boston Symphony Hall. And Boston Symphony Hall has these like choral risers that are built into the floor that come up. And so everything's wood on the stage.
Wow.
And I remember we sang an arrangement of Somewhere from West Side Story, but it was a
Yes.
cappella. And so at that ending thing where they go like, da, 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 and then normally the orchestra comes in and plays the final chord. But in this one, that was a cappella. So it was the sopranos singing that like, ah, ah. And then when the rest of the choir came in to sing the final ooh, the basses sang a low E flat. And I remember, I'm like, I'm getting emotional thinking about it now. It like shook the floor,
Right.
because all the wood, like I could feel it in my feet, and I couldn't sing. I like had to stop. I couldn't sing the last note, and I was kind of embarrassed, but I was like, this is just so crazy that we are like literally shaking the floor and nothing's happening except a group of people are standing here. There's no instruments.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
just people.
Just voices. And it's those moments, I believe, are just incredibly holy. Like
Mhm.
those moments are transformative. And in that moment, it doesn't matter what you're singing, it is the holiest, most sacred second you've ever experienced musically. And yes, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I love it, and I miss it, and we'll be back, right? We will be back.
Yeah, yeah.
So I love that so much. I remember when I was once singing an interfaith Yom HaShoah event in Edison, New Jersey, and they have I'm forgetting the name of the high school. You will tell me. It's the high school in Edison.
So I moved from there by the time I was high school, but I think it's JFK, isn't it? Isn't JFK the high school in Edison? Or maybe not.
Maybe not. Anyway, but I just remember hearing a choir in Edison, you should know, and this was ironic at the time too, is the East Indian capital of North America. Like the largest population of East Indian people immigrate and move to Edison, which is why when I walked into the temple, they were like, hang on a second, right? Like it was a very funny coincidence. But I remember hearing the opening of Eli Eli, and I actually turned around and was like, what was that? And it was this 40-person choir of East Indian kids from a high school in Edison. And it was
Mm.
just stunning. I mean, utterly stunning. So the musical programs are mind blowing there. So you go through this in high school, this transformative kind of holy awakening that this is what's happening for you. And one of the things that I have talked about with you is that you have this sense of conviction that when you decide to do something, it's just happening. But it's not an arrogance. It's like this like quiet, calm confidence of, well, why wouldn't it happen? So you decide to go on a Midwestern college tour. Tell us a little bit about how you ended up at IU.
Yeah, so we went to 6 different schools in the Midwest, all big, I think Ohio State and Michigan State and Northwestern. And we went to IU, and as soon as I got to IU, I fell in love with the campus, as many, I'm sure, of us are familiar with how beautiful it is. It must have just been a nice day, one of those things. And right then, I just really felt like this was where I wanted to go to school. And I knew I did very well with like grades in high school. And so I wasn't concerned about getting into IU from a grade standpoint. I knew the music school was hard to get in, but I said to my parents, I want to go to IU. And if I don't get into the music school, that's fine. I'm just only, and so I canceled my auditions at the other schools.
That's
Um,
insane. Like, just
which
think about
was,
that for 1 second. Like, what?
yeah,
Like,
it
what
was a
would you
bad
have
idea.
done? You would
Well,
have.
it was hard because I was only applying to places in the Midwest. So it was a big deal to go to these auditions because
Right.
like I had to fly out to go to auditions. And so it was like a lot to do. And I was like, why am I even doing this? I want to go to IU. And even if I don't, which would have been a terrible decision if I had not gotten in, but I did. So it all worked out.
And the auditions are exhausting. I mean, it's on top of all the entrance papers and everything you write. You then have to prepare this whole portfolio and all the music theory exams and and this is before you even get a chance to sing or play for them. So
Yes.
they're completely draining. So you go to IU, you get accepted. Now your dad went to IU, right?
Yes, he did. Hmm.
So this was kind of familiar territory. And I want to talk to you about wait, I may have skipped over it. Mark Miller. Am I
Yeah.
post Mark Miller now?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Mhm.
Before we get to IU, tell us a little bit about Mark Miller.
Yeah, well, so Mark ran a camp that I went to. So I grew up, I converted to Judaism. So I grew up in the Methodist church and went to a camp run by Mark Miller, who was a really important influence in my life when I was young. And he's an amazing guy. He is an African American and gay composer who makes his living working in the Methodist Church. So it's kind of he's just an amazing guy. And he, has led music at the national conference for the Methodist Church, even during a time when they wouldn't let him get married in their church, which was kind of an amazing thing. And so I went to a camp run by him every summer and learned a lot from him. And yeah, and he was just an important influence in my life as it relates to just what I think is, making music in a religious context, whatever that is. And everything he
Sure.
did because of his perspective, I think was very ecumenical.
Yeah. I've been talking so much, and this is such a debate too. And we touched on it when I was interviewing Michael Messina, and you and I touched on it when we spoke just the other day. But this idea that music kind of transcends the boundaries of religious affiliation, right? That it's just such a universal language that even the holiest, I mean, Colney Dre and this Bach's Saint Matthew Passion could not be more opposite from one another, and yet I have deeply spiritual experiences with both of them, And I think the same can be said. I mean, Mike Mark Miller it is a huge figure in the Methodist Church, and he doesn't like just make music. I mean, he's just a really big deal. And so I love that that you had that experience from a young age. So you get to IU, and I'm wondering if you might be willing to talk to us a little bit about your just your Jewish journey and how you got to where you are. And I understand there was a beautiful brunette involved, but still just kind of the winding path that got you there.
Yeah, well, I think, it did sort of begin, I mean, I don't know. I don't know where it really began. It seems like it really began when I met my wife, Kara, who we met living on the same dorm floor in Reed at IU. And we dated for a while, and then it became pretty clear she was Jewish and very convicted about that. And that was not foreign to me. Like, one of our early conflicts was that she really, growing up in the Midwest Jewish, she really identified as like really feeling like she was a minority I really struggled with that and like was not giving her credit for that, because growing up in New Jersey, like I got off high holidays for school every year. Like it was
Yep.
very normal, you know, like everybody was Jewish in New Jersey. It was just not even like a thing.
Everybody. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And so yeah, it just did not. And so we had some early conflict on that because she was like trying to convince me of this. And I was like, I don't know, you know. But yeah, and then I think, you know, what I discovered over time was that as I did more things with her family, you know, she never, you know, gave me an ultimatum or anything about, you know, that I had to convert if we were going to get married or anything like that. But I think the more that I did it, the more that I found that Reform Judaism specifically just really matched up with the beliefs that I already held and some of the conflict that I had with what I was familiar with. And so I think the more that I did it, the more that it just felt right. And it just it felt like it just felt like the right thing for me. And it was also, you know, I think if it were not for Kara, I don't know that I would have actually converted as much as just learned about it and, you know, been passive about my religious practice probably.
Sure.
But I think that because of her, and then also thinking about, you know, didn't know it yet, but having Ruth and having a family practice that, you know, we all did together, you know, felt important to me too. And just the more that I learned about it, the more it seemed like, you know, the thing that I already believed, but I didn't know.
Right.
That it
That's
was
fascinating. Yeah. That the values were values that you expected to pass on to your children anyway, and it
Right.
was more just kind of codifying them. When we were moving here from New Jersey and looking at neighborhoods, and I was looking at maybe putting Benjamin at a school on the west side of Carmel, I actually called Rabbi Brett and I said, I just want to make sure he doesn't go to a school where it's only Jewish kids. And he started laughing because in New Jersey, there are schools that are only Jewish
Absolutely.
kids.
There's neighborhoods where it's all it is. Yeah. I mean, it's like a big thing. Yeah.
At the time, I was like, I really want my kid to know a Christian. I mean, it's, you know, and I'm like, here we are in Indiana, right? Yeah, I love that. And I love how, you know, like I said, you definitely make up your mind and you make a decision to move forward in certain ways with conviction and confidence that that I think is enviable. That you know, a lot of musicians, and you and I have talked about this too, that a lot of musicians have this notion of kind of imposter syndrome or am I good enough or whatever, but this idea that you just do it and you do it well and people will take notice, you know? Tell me about, if as much as you're comfortable, talking about your journey with telling your family that you were going to convert.
Yeah, I mean, it was not, you know, not the easiest thing. My parents are very involved in their church, and they were the choir director and the organist, so
Right.
you know, they were at church every Sunday. And so it was not easy to tell them, but I think that, not that I was like hiding it, but I think by the time I told them, it was very much, it wasn't like I'm considering this. It was, you know, almost done.
Sure.
By the time that I told them, and they were certainly sad, and I think they probably are still sad, to be honest.
Sure.
But they're pretty good people, and I think, you know, they love me, and they said that in the moment. But it, you know, I think it's hard. And one of the things, you know, the thing that I think is tough is that I think that they may really potentially think that I might go to hell, or at least not be sure about it. And I think that is very sad for them, you know, and I understand that.
Right.
And that, like, I feel sad for them to feel that way.
Right.
And so, you know, that's hard. But I think that also, you know, kind of connects into why the choice felt right to me, because that was one of the things that I struggled a lot with, that,
Right.
you know, when I met Kara, that I couldn't imagine thinking that was the case. And then, and I talked with different people about it, and they told me about special loopholes for the Jews. And so like, that was okay. And I was like, well, this isn't, what if she was some other religion then? Like, this is not, specific to this.
It is
So
it's a very difficult thing to take our inherited theology and compare it to what we know to be true in terms of values and science and all of this. And it's a really difficult clash, right? Because it's not necessarily a clash that there is any answer to or that anyone can make any sense of. But what we know for sure is the feeling of love, the feeling of support, and the feeling of those whom we love. And I asked, and you should all know that all of these questions are, we've interviewed before, so I promise I'm not catching them off guard. I promise. And that your parents really have come to IHC a few times and have been super supportive of you and your work there. And yeah. And wait,
yeah.
is your mom's not Canadian? No, that's Kara's.
Yeah, no, she is. Actually, both Kara and my moms are Canadian.
That's right. Because I was like, I know I clicked with your mom over something else. I knew it. I love
that's a crazy thing about it. And so actually, because of that, both Kara and I are now also Canadian. We have our Canadian citizenship.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
We're taking over, everybody. Yeah. I love this. This feels like a really good moment to maybe introduce your first clip and tell us a little bit about what we're going to see. I've asked Mike to pick 3 clips that he'd like to show us of his work, just like I did everyone else up to this point. And tell me, are we going to go chronologically? Or are we going to see different ensembles?
Well, we're actually going to see the same ensemble do 3 very different things. That's the plan. So the clips that I've got for us today are all of my top group at North Central, the Counterpoints. I just kind of wanted to give a sense of all the different things that we do. And so this first one is sort of the most traditional concert choir piece. And it's just called Alleluia. And all of the words are Alleluia. But it's pretty awesome. It's by Jake Runestad, who is sort of a new composer on the scene of choral music. It's very fun. So I hope you enjoy it.
Beautiful.
Just get this going here. Okay. Are we seeing that?
We are seeing your desktop.
Oh, no. Well, that's not good. Let's try one more time. How about now?
Yes. Yep. We've got it.
Okay, great.
Bravo. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, before I put my own thoughts on this, tell me what you think of when you watch it.
Well, this is actually a little bit of an older video. This is from 2015. So
Yep.
what I'm really looking at is all these like young kids who I now know are adults and doing awesome things. There's, somebody in here who's an elementary school teacher in our school district now, and another kid who's really pursuing a career as an opera singer and all kinds of different things. So that's honestly what I think I'm mostly thinking about as I watch it.
What I love is, I liken it so much to like if you ever watch Bob Ross paint, right? And you see him just streak green across or whatever it is that he's doing. I love watching your hands because it's as though your hands are crafting these colors into this masterpiece. And what I love about memorized music is that there's just nowhere else to look. You have
Mhm.
every single ounce of breath and attention of every one of those kids, you know?
Yeah, it's
So,
very fun. I mean, I think, what you get at something I talk about a lot with the kids is, I'll hold up a piece of music that we're working on and I will say, this is not the music, actually.
right.
This is just like the instruction manual for how
Yep.
we do the music. And then it's only once we get to this point where we're not looking at that anymore and we just know what we're supposed to do, that now we're making the music, and
Yeah,
it's a little different every time. And the music is what we create together, not what's written on the page.
that's
And so it
exactly it.
definitely
Yep.
is, in a high school setting, we work on a piece like that for months and we only get to this point for the last like week and a half or so of it. But that last week and a half, boy, it's a lot of fun.
Ooh, but that was not an easy piece by any means. I mean, for multiple reasons, but just beautiful. Tell us a little bit about Apple Creek, Ohio. So,
Well, so that's where I got my first job, which happened because my wife, Kara, was a year ahead of me in school. So when she graduated, she went to Case Western University in Cleveland for graduate school. And so when I was looking for jobs, I was trying to get as close to Cleveland as I could. And Apple Creek, Ohio is what happened, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's Amish country. Sometimes people talk about one stoplight town, but there is no stoplight in Apple Creek. Uh, so and it was a very difficult spot. So I did my student teaching at North Central, working with the group that I just showed you, and then I went to this school and I was the fifth new choir director in 5 years, at a school with a total enrollment of 350, and North Central is about 3,500, so it's literally a tenth the size.
wow.
And it was really bad. It was in really bad shape as a program, and it was rough. And there were kids, asking me if they had to come to the concert, like if that was required. That was a big question my first year, and I was like, I don't even know how to field this question.
Right, right.
It was,
Like, wait a
but
minute, are you dropping? Are you
yeah,
dropping choir?
right,
Or this
right.
is,
No,
yeah,
they were just like, do I have to come? And so it was very challenging, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot about teaching, I think, all kinds of things that I didn't know you needed to do as a teacher, because my experience up to that point had been with really top-notch programs where the kids kind of do what they're supposed to do.
sure.
Um, but it turns out that when you gain those skills, it even helps with the kids that do what they're supposed to do. So I think it made me a lot better. And it was extremely satisfying, because what I often tell people is that working at North Central, I take kids who are here and I try to get them here. Like I'm
Right, right.
pushing to make, they're already awesome. They could do it by themselves and they'd be great. And so I'm trying to get them just like to even better. But at Waynedale, it was like I took kids who really didn't know anything and I got them here, which was not to the level that North Central even is when we start, but is pretty rewarding in a different way.
Absolutely.
Um, so I think those, and then the other big thing that I learned just about life was it was a great experience for me to be in like rural America, and be around. I had never, growing up in New Jersey and then being in Bloomington, I didn't encounter a lot of people who thought about the world differently than me.
Right.
And so I learned a lot being there about, it helps me understand a lot of things about the world today and how we are where we are. And I think I'm a more sympathetic person to people who disagree with me because of the people that I know and love from there, who I know are good people, but think about the world very differently than I do. So
Fascinating. Yeah, and I love what you're saying about this whole idea of kind of laying the foundation for your career in those first few years where it's not the big program, it's not, you know, that top-notch spot, but it's formative because what you did with those kids in that program was huge.
it was very exciting, and it really transformed. You know, by the time I left there, you know, as it said in my bio, we had almost 120 kids in choir in this tiny little school, and our top group was pretty darn good. Like we did a really nice job. And I'm proud of the, you know, my first concert there. Oh boy, it's really rough.
We all have those concerts. I'm just glad YouTube was not around back then.
I know. Like and the thing that made it the hardest was I did this concert that I was so embarrassed of, and it was so painful for me. And as I walked out, I like couldn't get out of the auditorium because everyone was stopping me, telling me that it was the best concert they'd had there in years. You know, and that was almost worse because I was like, what have I done here?
Yes.
But it really was super rewarding. And it was, there are times, you know, when I'm dealing with the bureaucracy of North Central where I miss the simple times.
Miss Apple Creek.
Yes.
So let's talk for a second about what it is to come in on the tail end of someone else's legacy. So I know a little something about this, right? But Pat Weehee had run North Central Concert Choir for 27 years.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you that when I was debating whether or not to apply to IHC, I had a very good friend of mine say to me, you shouldn't do it. And I said, why? And they said, because you will become an accidental interim. And I said, what do you mean by that? And they said, after someone beloved, they need to have like a palate cleanser before they're ready to love someone else. And I thought long and hard about this. Like these words really kind of sat with me. And Rabbi Brett, I think when you and I first met, I even brought it up. And I said, do you think this community's ready to, like, am I setting myself up here, you know? And you have been loved by North Central. I mean, obviously you student taught there also. But I know that what your predecessor does and says about you and how they kind of onboard you goes a really long way. I mean, Cantor Roger just agreeing to sing with me at my first High Holy Days was a really big step, right? So tell me about Pat Weehee and your relationship and how that all worked out.
Yeah, well, so I student taught with Pat, and she was a great mentor for me, still is. And so when I came in, I mean, it was definitely something I was worried about, you know, stepping into her shoes. And I think even now, I sometimes, you know, I've been at North Central for 8 years, and I still sometimes introduce myself as like, I'm the new choir director at North Central.
I always say I'm going to be the new Cantor for 37 years. Right?
Yeah, right. But it's getting to the point now where like some of my students don't even know who she is. And I am like so confused by that. But she's wonderful. And I think, you know, my transition in coming to North Central, there were two things. One was Pat was very committed to staying out of the way, sometimes more than I wanted her to, where I would say, hey, can you come in and just like do a clinic? Can you come in and just watch and like give me pointers? And she was like, no, I can't. For like 3 years, she wouldn't come in because she was like, because if I come in, anything that I say, they're going to think I'm undermining you. You know, she's like, they're like, because that always, you know, any of us would come in and give suggestions, just a different ear, you know, and she said, and anything that I say, the kids who were my kids are going to think I'm undermining you. So she's like, we just got to wait until after like my kids are done. And then I'll come. And so that was number one. But number two, I think, and more importantly, was I had a group of parents who were extremely committed to me succeeding and feeling at home in Indianapolis. And I think that Pat did a lot to set that up, to encourage them, you know, to be there. And we had, I don't know if any of you guys know Tracy Kruger, who is a good friend of ours still to this day. But she was the parent president at the time, and she was very committed to making my whole family feel at home. And even to this day, you know, Ruth calls her Aunt Tracy, and the group of parents from that time. And they tell us now that they were committed to making Kara and I, like, that they were going to be friends with us, whether they liked us or not, because they wanted us to not only, you know, be supported at school, but also like in the community. And it turns out, I think 8 years in, we can decide that they actually do like us. But
I was going to say, they probably
yeah,
actually like
yeah, I feel, or at least they like Ruth, you know, at that point she could take over. So she's easy to like. But that was the biggest thing. And I think, while of course I had moments of, you know, people telling me that this is the way we used to do it or whatever, you know, I think I always knew that everybody just wanted us to be great, and they were open to my ideas about how we were going to be great, and they just wanted me to know when there were things that they thought were going to help us be great. And I think, you know, I was very lucky. It was not very bumpy at all. And I think, you know, of course there were little moments, but nothing significant. I had a great transition and great support from everybody in the community.
I love that. Tell us about your second musical example.
So the second one is the same, well, not the literal same group of kids, but the same ensemble from a couple years later. And now we're going to see show choir. So we're going to see the other side of the coin that group does. So this is going to be the first bit of our show choir set from 2018, which is when we went to show choir nationals in Nashville, Tennessee, and we won show choir nationals that year. So it was a pretty exciting performance. This is
So before you share, you have to set this up a little bit, because when I got here, Mike said to me, "Have you ever seen show choir?" Because it's not, I mean, first of all, I've never seen it in Canada, and in New Jersey, I don't know that it's a thing.
Yeah, not really.
And so I was like, "No, what are you talking about?" And then you asked me if I watched Glee, and then I came to a performance and was like, "Oh my God, this is a whole world." So I imagine everyone knows, but set it up a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, show choir is sort of a competitive game, I think you might say, but where the kids sing and dance at the same time. And it's all, you know, at the highest level, it's all custom arranged stuff. So all of the stuff that you'll hear in this performance was arranged by me and my arranging partner, Garrett Breeze, who's an North Central alum. And so we take songs, typically songs that are either like Broadway songs or on the radio, and then turn them into something that can be performed by a choir. So what we're going to hear today is the opening sequence from this 2018 show. And this is on YouTube. If you want to watch it later, you're welcome to look it up, but the whole thing's like 18 minutes long, so we won't watch the whole thing. But it's a combination of a song called Let the Road by a group called Rixton, that is like an a cappella group. And then it's combined with I Just Want to Be Happy by Gloria Estefan. So that's
Nice.
what they go into. So yeah,
Hey.
Here it is. Oh, and it features, you're going to hear there's a soloist at the beginning whose name is Mark Maxwell. He's pretty amazing. He graduated. He was a senior this year, so he graduated in 2018 and is now at Ball State doing musical theater. And then it also you'll see there's a girl in a yellow dress whose name is Audrey Serena, and she's a pretty incredible dancer, and she's now majoring in contemporary dance at IU. Are you guys seeing that?
Yes. Yep. We got it.
Take you home, and the sun catch your eyes. If you don't belong in the world, feels too
So anyway, it keeps going, but
Unreal. Like for someone who had only ever seen choirs that stand still and sing. I mean, this is just mind-blowing. Not only as a singer, I can't imagine, I mean, as a human, I can't imagine doing the dancing. Let me start with that. But that's incredible. I mean, the just to keep the sound going, the breath control necessary just to keep that going. And the amount of production, as an electrician's wife, I'm looking at all the lighting, going, this is crazy. So at some point between 2015 and 2018, a major life moment happened for you when you became a dad. And I bring up, is she on? I see a Ruthie, and I imagine maybe
oh
that's
no, I don't
her.
think that's her. I
Okay.
think it must be
I
a different
imagine she's
Ruthie.
probably sleeping. But I am wondering, there it is, Kara. So I am
Oh, it
wondering
is. I
if
didn't even know.
you can I thought of Ruthie because when I see the costumes, I know that the costume designer makes Ruthie a Ruth size costume, right? Of all of these beautiful pieces. So I would love to know if you could tell us how becoming a father kind of informed your work or changed your work or changed your approach to music.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have always, Kara sometimes jokes that she had friends who at certain points in our relationship, like when we were quite young, she would talk about me and my kids. And these people would then at a certain point ask, like, how many kids does he have? Like, it's one thing for you to date someone with kids, but it feels like there's a lot. And so I've always referred to my students as my kids. And and so that's always been very important to me, and I think but obviously having Ruth kind of took that to a new level, and she's pretty amazing, and I feel very lucky to be her dad because she's an awesome kid. And I think the thing that is the biggest thing that's changed for me is just it used to always be that my kids at school were kind of the number one thing that, oh, and there she is waving hi. But it used to always be that my kids at school were kind of the number one thing that, Kara would come with me a lot, and we just were hanging out there all the time. And so figuring out how to prioritize both of those things was the biggest change, and figuring out how to continue to do my job well without having it, consume my entire life. And then I think it also just gives me a different perspective on my students, and thinking about them as somebody's kid, in a little bit of a different way.
Right, right,
But
right.
yeah.
And she is also super musical. No surprise there. But even collaborated with her dad and did a little performance virtually when all of this started. Let's talk for 1 second about this pandemic and your reaction to it musically, because that's been incredible in and of itself. So the weekend of March, I think 15th, the world locked down. And then the next week, singers got what I think was kind of the biggest blow we've ever received, which is we were labeled super spreaders and told that it was just not happening. And I think there are so many of us who really went through a mourning period of just total devastation. I couldn't help but think about the kids who had just been accepted to Juilliard, or the person whose opening night on Broadway was supposed to be April 1st. And I just kept thinking, like, these lives, they worked their entire lives and it's gone. And you offered the first glimmering light of hope that I had seen in a long time. You have given many, many people hope through Riverbend, and I'd love for you to talk about it.
Yeah, well, it all just started. When everything shut down, one of the first things that I wanted to figure out how to do was, we have a tradition at the end of the year at North Central. We sing a piece called Jenny Rebecca, and we invite alumni up on stage. And it became clear very quickly that that wasn't going to happen. And so I called I don't know what the first one of these virtual performance videos was that I saw, but it's some Jimmy Fallon or somebody was doing these
Sure.
things early on. And so I called Joey Mervis, who's an alum, actually was in the first video that I showed you singing in the choir, who is now a senior at NYU and was always very good at video editing stuff. He did a lot of video work with us at North Central when he was a student and has continued to do that. And I said, hey, can you do one of these videos that like people are doing? And he was like, yeah, I can do it, I think. And I was like, okay, well, I think I can mix it. Like I can make the audio work. And if you can make the video. And we were like, okay. And so we just decided we were going to do it. And we made one for Jenny Rebecca for the piece that we do at North Central. We put a call out to alumni and asked if they would do it. And on the day that the videos were due in the morning, I had put it on our Facebook page. And in the morning, I think I had like 18 alumni. And I was a little disappointed in that. I was like, okay, that's fine. That's good. So I posted again on the page. And then they just started pouring in on the day that they were due. And by like dinner time that day, I had 90 alumni. And then my email was full of people being like, please let me submit. Like, if you can give me the weekend, I'll get it done. And by the end of the weekend, I had 180.
180?
Yeah, people from as far back as 1975, which they weren't even doing Jenny Rebecca in 1975. So she learned the song just to participate in this. So we had people all the way we had 180 people in this video, and it was pretty amazing. And we really were not ready to do a video with 180 people,
Sure.
but we figured it out, trial by fire. And then we also did a couple of things for Summer Stock Stage, which is a community theater group in town that we were both involved in. And after we did, we'd now done like 3 or 4 of these videos, and we said, I feel like people are going to want to do these when school starts in the fall.
Yeah.
And so maybe we should put up a website and like make an actual company and do it. And we weren't sure, how big it was going to be. We kind of thought it would just be like some videos at the start of school and then everybody will be over this. And then we did that. And then High Holidays came around and we told you about it. And I don't know, you told everybody in Judaism, I think. And then
I put one post to the American Conference of Cantors. And then I had a friend for whom you did 40 videos or something.
Yeah, we did a lot. We did a lot for High Holidays. And then we thought, all right, this is going to be the end. And then Christmas time came around and all the schools and churches wanted to do that. And then we thought, okay, for sure, this is going to be it. And then January rolled around and we still have, we're booked doing videos all the way. We just booked our first one for August already of this year. So people are still doing it. So it's been quite an adventure. We've now, it started just Joey and I doing them ourselves. We now have 6 employees and other people making the videos, and it's turned into quite a thing that we are excited to end and never do again.
Right. As I think we all are. Like, we all can't wait to never have to worry about this again. Like, I never ever want to say the words, "Is your original sound on?" ever again. But I also, you cannot underestimate how difficult it is, first of all, to record these videos individually, right? Because a lot of times you have got community choirs who like safety in numbers when you're singing. They don't feel great singing on their own with one earbud in, listening to a guide track. But you and Joey have made it so easy, step by step, with all the tracks and upload here, and here's what you're going to need. And then the finished product is, without a doubt, the most professional I've seen, and I've seen a lot of them. So it's really, really beautiful. Is this the last example you're going to share with us? Is it
The last one is, yes.
Okay.
So this is the same group of kids, but this is this year's group. And so normally we always start the year with camp, we call it, where we do a camp show at the end of the week. And so this year we did camp all on Zoom, which was not as fun, but we tried to have a good time. And then we put together this video and we did I'm Still Standing by Elton John, because with, the idea being we're still here, even though this is happening. So here they are.
Love it. The production that you and Joey are doing, the production value is just fantastic. And the like I cannot imagine the amount of effort just lining up the tracks. So
Yeah.
Mike does this awesome thing at the beginning of your guide track. Your guide track is what you listen to in order to sing and make the track, and he goes, "Here comes the clap." Right? And then you hear the clap, and I love it.
Think I'm gonna hear that when I die because I
I
just say it over and over again.
like we'll just here comes the clap, right? It's just amazing. And you of course have done them for our choir and then for my cantorial class, and just really beautiful work. But I can't say enough about the hope that that offers, you know, to be able to hear harmony like that again, to feel as though you're singing with people goes a really long way. And in high school in particular, which we all know can be such an emotionally charged time in life as it is, you are just creating this safe space and this incredible community, for kids to know that they are loved and supported, and you're doing it through music. And it's pretty incredible. So we're going to wrap up, but before we do that, we have to go to what I call the lightning round, which is
Oh
I was
yeah,
gonna.
I'm worried. I'm not gonna know the answers. So.
No, are you kidding? I'm just gonna throw questions at you, Mike. So let's start easy. What's your favorite food?
It's supposed to be easy. I don't know. Uh, chicken parmesan.
Chicken parm. Okay. Chicago or New York pizza?
New York. That's not. Chicago is not even pizza.
I know it's like lasagna. I know. I know. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Brett. I
it's
know.
like a
Um,
pie of pizza ingredients. It's
it
not
is.
pizza. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And what is one place you've never traveled to that you'd love to go?
Mm. I would like to go to. Ooh, I don't know. I don't have it quickly. I've gotten to go to a lot of places that I would like to go to. Um, boy, I need to skip. I don't know.
Okay. What's the coolest place you've ever been?
The coolest place I've ever, I think, is Greece. The coolest place
Okay.
I've ever been. Yeah, I
Okay.
really
Love
love
it.
Greece.
And the best stage you've ever performed on?
Ooh, uh, why? It's like for different reasons. I mean, I really like that moment that I talked about at Boston Symphony Hall really stands out. I will tell you, I think my favorite stage that I've ever had a choir sing on is the new Strott Center at Butler. I think is incredible.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And what is your favorite piece to conduct or listen to or sing?
Mm, I think I would say a piece I've come back to multiple times is a piece for women's choir called Song of Ruth, that I discovered for the first time when Kara was pregnant, and we knew we were going to name her Ruth, but we actually didn't know if she was a boy or a girl. But if she was a girl, we knew she'd be Ruth. And we sang it for the first time, and it is really beautiful.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
What is a piece that everyone loves that you would be okay never hearing again?
Uh, the musical Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
I know. I know. I know.
Hate it.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. We are breaking Rabbi Brett's heart in this moment.
All right.
But I know. Do you know that he wrote it for his son's kindergarten class? Did you know that?
No, but it kind of sounds like that. Sounds
Yeah.
like Gilligan's Island theme. That's Benjamin, you nasty man, a 3-hour tour. It's Gilligan's Island.
Okay. I'm with you. I've done 17 full-length productions
Oh,
of,
I'm sure.
so I am with
Yeah.
you. And if you were not doing this, what would you be doing? If you were
Ooh,
not dedicating your life to music, what would you be doing?
I don't know. I've been on this track for a very long time. I think if I were going to change, I would either do real estate, because I think that would be fun,
You'd be good at
or
that.
Or maybe advertising, because I took an advertising class in college and I was like, this is the first thing I've taken where I was like, ooh, I could do this instead. I really liked it, but it was only one class and then I didn't. So I guess not.
Okay, I like that. Um, and then my final question is, how do you think you emerge from this pandemic? How do you and your kids and musicians in general come out of this? What's going to feel like? What's going to look like? How are you changed?
Um, I think the reality is I've like pictured since very early on that there's going to be this moment where like we're in my classroom and everybody takes their masks off and sings as loud as they can, but like that's not going to happen. It's going to be a slow, a gradual thing. But I think something that had a lot of impact on me was so one of our projects, we've made our whole show choir set. So like what I showed on stage where they danced and sang, we made a video version of that this year that's going to come out next week. And as part of that project, we always have a ballad in the show choir set, which is one song that we just stand and sing. And we decided this year that we were going to write our ballad from scratch as like a class project. Normally we would do like a Broadway song or whatever, but
Sure.
but we wrote it from scratch as a class project. And so we did a bunch of free writing and the kids, and we were going to write about this year and about, and I kind of let them free write and I gave them all these prompts that it could be positive, negative, anything. And overwhelmingly, when we did a free write about the year, what the kids wrote about was that they feel like now they're the best version of themselves that they've ever been. And that this time has let them focus on what's important and who they really are. And so that's really the song that we wrote in the end. It came out really awesome. And I think I feel the same way. I mean, I feel like this year has been impossibly hard, especially from a musical perspective. School has been no fun at all. But in many ways, it's been, I mean, I feel horrible even saying this because I know it's been so bad for so many families, but it's been wonderful in different ways to let us focus on what's really important. And so I think I have a better sense of that to return back to school and my family and everything else in my life about, prioritizing what's really important. But I am also just really excited to get back singing together again, because as you said, I mean, I think these videos that we're making give people hope, but they do not provide, you see those videos of the kids singing and dancing together, but they never actually sang or danced together,
Right.
And so much of what we do in a normal year, I talk about that it's really not about the performance. It's about the experience of doing this together. And that's what we're missing. We were able to make the performance happen,
Sure.
but that in my mind has always been secondary. And so I'm very excited to get back to that experience in a sort of renewed way.
Well, I am incredibly grateful to you, as we all are, for just bearing your soul in this way. Thank you for your willingness to do this. But I also know that bearing your soul for the sake of music and for the sake of our IHC community is something you do regularly. And so we are incredibly grateful to you. I cannot wait for you and I to be able to be in the same room. I can't wait for the first Nefesh where we can all sing together and play. And it just, I think, the music will take on even more meaning. So thank you, Mike Raunick. Thank you all for coming. Next week will be our final episode of MasterClass. It is co-sponsored by the Life After 50 group, and I'll be interviewing Adam Shapiro, who is IHC alum. Should I call him alum? IHC. He's one of IHC's own, and of course is a star on Broadway in the Yiddish production of Fiddler on the Roof. So join us next week. Thank you, Mike, so much. Good night, everyone. Have a great week. Take care.
Thank you.